is Jeremy Richards. I am an immigration lawyer with the law offices of Richards and Jurusik, where we only practice U.S. immigration law. In this video today, I'm going to be reviewing the top 10 most frequently asked questions about TN visa status and clarifying a lot of misconceptions and confusion out there about the TN visa. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share these videos with others out there that you think might find them helpful. Also, comments below have a lot of additional information and links to information about immigration law that you might find helpful as well. Number one, basic question, what is the TN visa? Well, TN visa status is afforded through the USMCA, the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and it is only available for Canadian citizens and Mexican citizens. Permanent residents do not qualify for TN status. You must be either a citizen of Mexico or Canada to qualify under this agreement. Number two, not everybody can get TN status that's a Canadian or Mexican. It isn't a blanket visa for all Canadian citizens and all Mexican citizens. Your occupation must be listed under the NAFTA occupations list or the USMCA occupations and professions list. If your occupation is not listed, if you do not have the education for that occupation, then you will not qualify for TN status. For example, the trades are not covered under the USMCA. So if you are a carpenter, a plumber, or electrician, unfortunately, your profession is not listed and you will not be able to obtain TN status. You get a lot of calls from CDL drivers, not listed, you're not able to get TN status. We get a lot of calls for those as sales and marketing professionals, not listed, you're not able to get TN status under those professions. So your occupation must be listed in order for you to obtain TN status. Number three, how hard is it to obtain TN status? Well, it's pretty easy if you're a Canadian citizen. A Canadian citizen with the proper documentation can show up at a port of entry or U.S. pre-flight inspection and obtain TN status right there on the spot. It's a little more difficult if you're a Mexican citizen. Most Mexicans have to obtain a visa in their passport first, and that must be obtained through a U.S. consulate. Number four, what documents are required to apply for TN status? And this can be a little bit confusing if you read a lot of literature out there. One of the most confusing pieces, I think, is an offer letter that's required for TN status, which is very confusing because offer letters typically fall short of the requirements of what is required to obtain TN status at either a U.S. consulate or a port of entry. Because an offer letter simply is a letter to a potential employee that tells them, hey, we're going to give you this job. And it doesn't go into detail about that position with extensive duties, with their qualifications, with their start date, with their end date, with their wages, all of these requirements that the border or the consulate needs in order to verify whether or not that position qualifies. In addition to a properly written support letter that would be presented during the application process, you need proof of citizenship, which is typically your passport, proof of your qualifications, which would typically be your original degree and supporting transcripts, as well as proof of your intent, that your intention is only to come to the United States temporarily for this position with the intent to depart in the future and not stay permanently. Also, that support letter must detail that that employer is US-based, or that contract you have is a US-based contract, and that they do have professional level work under that USMCA profession for you to perform. Number five, the wait time. How long does it take to get TN status? TN status, again, is really quick. If you're Canadian, show up at a port of entry, typically within 30 minutes to an hour with the right documentation, you're stamped, you enter the US, you're on your way into TN status. Mexican citizens, however, could wait a few months to get an appointment at a US consulate and to get their initial visa stamp in their passport before they enter the United States. So it's a little bit more prolonged if you're a Mexican citizen or a Canadian citizen. Number six, how long is a TN visa valid? Well, TN visa is very flexible. You can get a TN visa for 1 day if your engagement only requires you to be here for a day, for a couple of months, if it's for a couple of months, up to 3 years per stay, with unlimited extensions. So you can get TN status for 3 years to work for your employer today. They want to extend you for another 3 years, then they can extend you for another 3 years. You get another job and they want you for 3 years, well then you can get another job for 3 years. And you can do that indefinitely with no limit on the amount of TN visas you can get. Number 7, Can I change my employer when I'm under TN status? Absolutely you can. If for some reason you find a new employment, add an employer, you can do that as well. Or you decide that you want to depart the United States, you're not beholden to that employer. You can change employers at any time, you can add an employer, or you could depart your employment if you so choose. If you are already in the United States, either as a Mexican or Canadian citizen, you can file with USCIS to change your employer by mail with no need to leave the United States. Or if you are either Canadian or Mexican, you can add an employer by departing and re-entering the United States. Number 8, can my family members join me in the US when I'm working under TN status? The answer is absolutely yes, they can. They would obtain what's called TD status. It's very simple if they're Canadian or Mexican, because they would get their status the same way you do. As a Canadian, it can be done at a port of entry. Mexicans require that TD visa in their passport through the US consulate prior to entry. Now, if your spouse or children are non-Canadian or non-Mexican, it could be a little bit more difficult if they're non-Canadian, because they can't get it at a port of entry. They would have to go through a US consulate to get their TD, just like a Mexican has to go through the consulate to get their TD. Number 9, can a TN visa lead to a green card? Absolutely it can. Now, is there a direct path like the L1A visa to a green card? No, there is not. However, it's the same path as an H-1B visa to a green card, to what is called the PERM process, or the labor certification process. If your employer wishes to keep you permanently and they do the process correctly through PERM, then absolutely you can go from a TN visa to a green card. We do it all the time. Also, the other common method we see going from TN visa to green card is through marriage to a US citizen or US permanent resident. Again, if it's done correctly, you can absolutely transition from a TN visa to a green card. And the final question, number 10, how do you handle denial? That all depends. It depends on the reason you were refused or denied entry under that TN status. And it could be as simple as you had the wrong documentation. Maybe you didn't bring your original degree with you. You fell short of the requirements because of a documentation error. But it could be more severe. Maybe you have an immigration or criminal history that prevents you from entering the United States. Or you just simply don't qualify. Maybe you don't have the right education, maybe you don't have the right experience, or maybe the position doesn't qualify that you're coming in to perform the work in the United States under a TN profession. So denials can be for multiple reasons. They would have to be reviewed to determine whether or not you can reapply or there's errors in that initial application. But a simple refusal or denial does not mean you cannot get TN status. However, it would require review to determine whether or not you do qualify and what the errors were and the reasons behind your denial. Hopefully this top 10 helped you clarify some of the questions that we receive about TN status and that you might have had about TN status. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, go to the comments below for more details about these questions we covered today. Share this with those out there that you think might find it helpful. And thank you for watching and have a great day.